We have his coordinates.
You can bring me to Moff Gideon.
The Moff has a light cruiser. It could be helpful in your effort to regain Mandalore.
You gotta be kidding me. Mandalore? The Empire turned that planet to glass.
You are a disgrace to your armor.
This armor belonged to my father.
Don't you mean your donor?
Careful, princess.
You are a clone. I've heard your voice thousands of times.
Mine might be the last one you hear.
Greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tigar. Welcome to the 23rd action-packed episode of Mandovision, Nargai Tom. And thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. Today, we are here to talk about the most jaw-dropping spectacle so far on this show. We are here to talk about Chapter 16, The Rescue. Written by Jon Favreau and directed by Peyton Reed. This is the season finale to season 2 of The Mandalorian, and like I said at just a moment ago, jaw-dropping. My jaw fell out of my mouth onto the floor, and I couldn't pick it up for a very long time. I mean, what an incredible action-packed episode. Tons of great information, tons of really fun Star Wars stuff in there, and then that ending. And if you're listening to this podcast, you better know what ending I'm talking about. I've told you all before, I get up very, very early in the morning to watch The Mandalorian before I go to work, because I am very sensitive to the possibilities of running into spoilers and things of that nature, and getting wisps of information before I could watch the show would send me into an epic tizzy fit of just biblical proportions, and so I get up early to watch it before I go to work. I'm up at usually the alarm goes off at 3:00 in the morning, and I am out in the living room watching my Disney Plus by 3:01. And especially today, when I had a feeling it was gonna be a longer episode, so I needed some time, needed some of that extra time, and today was one of those days where I'm so glad that I get up early to watch the show. Sometimes it's hard. That alarm goes off at 3 in the morning and you're like, really? It's here already? But you get excited, you get comforted by knowing that you're about to watch The Mandalorian. And today, I was a bit mystified, perplexed, baffled by the sheer amount of spoilers that I saw on the internet by 9 a.m. West Coast time. It was just crazy to me. Just crazy to me how people were just putting it all out there for people to see. And I'm not just talking about, Twitter or Instagram, stuff on social media with people saying things. I'm talking about like news sites, like Google News had a screen cap of that moment that we're going to talk about. I don't know why I'm dancing around it. I mean, like I said, if you listen to this podcast, odds are you've watched the show. Odds should be really, really good that you watch the show. And if you haven't watched the show, you got to start watching the show before you come to this podcast, because we're going to spoil it. That's just kind of built in. That's kind of implied. I hope you all know that by now. But I was aghast at all the things I was seeing. I had friends sending me screen caps of different news pages and different things where they were just putting it all out on Front Street, and my mind was just completely blown by that. It really, upset is a strong word, and so is angered. But it really annoyed the holy stuff out of me. I almost slipped and broke my promise not to curse on this podcast. But it really annoyed the crap out of me, and it really bummed me out. And this podcast has a wonderful listening base, and maybe some of you guys and gals and fine folks aren't as sensitive to spoilers as I am, and that is completely your prerogative. But you have to recognize, I think everyone has to recognize that not everyone can stay up till midnight to watch the show, or necessarily has the drive to get up at the time that I get up to watch it before I go to work. The all of my coworkers wait till they get home from work to watch The Mandalorian. So I always have to mind my P's and Q's and not say too much. But I'm kind of like the hype man at work. I get everyone real hyped. And today, I think I chose my words very, very, very appropriately. When I just would they would ask me if I watched it and what I thought, and I would just tell them, "You're not ready. You're not ready for what you're going to see later when you get home." Because I don't think any of us were ready for what we were going to see today when we watched The Mandalorian. And of course, let's just put it out there again. If you haven't watched the podcast, or I'm sorry, if you haven't watched the episode yet, and you're still here, this is the final warning for spoilers, because I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker on The Mandalorian. I didn't think they had the guts to do it. We talked about this a couple episodes ago. I didn't think they had the stones to do what they did, to bring Luke into this, to sort of tie the Mandalorian in with the sort of like the main Star Wars trilogy, basically. Like, we're talking about a character from the Holy Trilogy. Luke Skywalker is now on the show, and listen, let's just say it right now. Like, the CGI wasn't great. That CGI de-aging thing that they used a lot in Rogue One for Grand Moff Tarkin and for Princess Leia. It's still a little rough. Rogue One, I think, was 4 years ago. Like this past week, I think this past week was the 4-year anniversary of Rogue One, and that technology still has some bugginess to it. But that aside, I think it's completely reasonable to just lean into the feels, the nostalgia that evokes, just the imagery of Luke Skywalker, our beloved Luke, coming in, swooping in his X-wing to save the day. Now, again, I know we're jumping ahead to the end, and we are going to go through the episode, but we just need to talk about it because, hey, I'm talking about the spoilers, and this is the image that I'm talking about. When he pulls the hood back, and that image was all over the internet today, and my mind, wow, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Not even 24 hours, but barely even 8 after it had dropped, and that image was all over the internet, and it was just I was floored. I was floored. Because I would have to assume that many people had this episode spoiled for them by going to a news site, and I guess you can make the claim that, well, you shouldn't go online. It's really hard these days not to go online at all in some capacity. It's one thing to try to avoid Twitter or Instagram for fear of spoilers, but if you're just clicking on the Google News to see what's going on in the world and you get that spoiled for you, that is a real bummer. Oh man. And I just noticed we haven't even done the whole rundown for the opening of the show. So I'm gonna have to pause in this recap just to kind of do what I'm supposed to do. All right. So once again, thank you all so much for checking out, listening to this small independent Star Wars podcast. Remember, the best way to reach out to us is via social media. We are at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram, and we do not post spoilers. We do not post anything that could be construed as a spoiler for at least 72 hours. Knowing my schedule is closer to 82 hours, but you know what I mean. We wait till at least Monday to post anything that could even, that could be misconstrued. So that's what we do. We are a part of the 3BZ network of podcasts. If you want to take a chance, head on over to the 3BZine.com. You can find links to all of our podcasts, which include Beer Night in San Diego, this fine podcast, Mandovision, and the Tomcast podcast, where I hang out and talk about all the other fun stuff going on in pop culture, like a lot of Marvel stuff going on that podcast. So that's a lot of fun, and I say lots of dirty swear words on that one. I can be rather inappropriate on that one. We keep the Star Wars show family friendly because Star Wars is for everyone. But on Tomcast podcast, I get a little naughty sometimes. And just warning. If you go over to 3bzine.com, you'll also find a link to our store envy page where you can find t-shirts, sweatshirts, all other kinds of goodies for all the shows of the 3BZine podcast network. And remember, we are on Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. And if you're doing Apple Podcasts, sweet 5-star reviews are so critically helpful in getting the word out about what we're doing here on the Tomcast Podcast and all the fun we're having breaking down these episodes and going into all the lore and all the mythology, connecting the dots with some of the old canon. It's just, man, just doing this podcast has just been so much freaking fun. I have such a good time doing this one and just kind of, letting my Mando nerd flag fly. It's been so much fun talking about this with all of you for season 2. And again, I've mentioned in the past, but we have a lot of listeners, and that just blows my mind to know that people are coming back and listening to the show every week, and I'm hoping you all are having as much fun listening to it as I am making it for you. So let's do it. Let's strap on our buckets. Let's go. All right. Hey, we talked about it. It's an action-packed episode from the get-go. We open up and we get something we haven't had too much of this season: a space battle. How great is that? We get Slave One tracking down a Imperial shuttle. You gotta love that tri-wing Imperial shuttle. It's you recognize it from Return of the Jedi. Obviously, the shuttle's Hyderium that they use to access the Forest Moon of Endor, to penetrate the shields of the Forest Moon of Endor, piloted by Han Solo and Chewbacca. So we all love that ship design. We've all seen that ship design, and we find out really quickly that there is a person of importance. There is a person of importance on the shuttle, and that would be our good friend Dr. Pershing, the clone scientist who's been helping Moff Gideon study little baby Grogu. And this is a great way to open the episode. A lot of great action. Again, space battle, something we haven't had too much of this season on The Mandalorian. So I love seeing it. I've really enjoyed seeing Slave One zipping around and doing some damage. I love that ship design so much. It's such a fun ship. It's so distinct and recognizable and fun. And to see it in hot pursuit of an Imperial shuttle is just a delight. And the great shot of we'll talk about it in a second, but I love how they disabled the shuttle with the ion cannons. We talked about ion cannons a few weeks ago on the podcast, and it's nice to see them put into play here so that they could capture the shuttle without destroying it, without risking any damage, potentially killing Dr. Pershing. They obviously need Dr. Pershing. So the shuttle's disabled, and Slave One's going to board. They're gonna board up, and you get that great shot from the cockpit of Slave One just coming up and over the shuttle, and I loved that so much. And you can even see Fett in the cockpit. Pretty awesome stuff. And it's not long before Din Djarin, our favorite Mando, is on board, and he begins. Well, he's hoping to take Pershing, but the pilots grab him and take him hostage real quick. At least one of them does. One of them really aggressively and shoots the other pilot. One pilot wants to make a deal with Din Djarin, and the other pilot's having none of it, so he gets shot in the back. That's when Cara Dune shows up, and just a really awful, nasty exchange between the Imperial and Cara Dune as he's calling her out, mocking her pain as a survivor of Alderaan, how he was on the Death Star, how he enjoys blowing up terrorists, things like that. It was pretty intense scene. And then Cara Dune shoots him right in the face. Classic Cara Dune. All right, so they have Dr. Pershing, some dead Imperial pilots, but more importantly, they have Pershing now, and he's going to give them a lot of information down the road. First, we have to link up with Bo-Katan and Koska Reeves, excuse me. We don't know. I've been looking for more information. One of the things I've talked about with The Mandalorian, one of the things that I don't want to say I'm not a fan of it necessarily, but I don't like that we don't ever know what planets they're going to and where they're going and things like that. Like, the names are never mentioned, never referenced, and that kind of bums me out. And we don't find out until like later on when like concept art or something like that is revealed. Anyways, so we go to a planet. There's like these giant smokestacks and all kinds of some kind of industrial things going on there. But they arrive at the port. Our Mando, Din Djarin, and Boba Fett enter a bar. Two Mandalorians enter a bar that gets some notice. I like the way, again, this episode is very Star Warsy in the sense that it's a lot of it's in space. It's on Moff Gideon's cruiser. but the roots of the show are still that of the like the Western inspired gunslinger type show. So I like when Din and Boba enter the bar and everything kind of stops and people take notice of two Mandalorians, especially after there's already two Mandalorians in the bar. So now you have four Mandalorians, four Mandalorians in a bar, and I think they all think that's maybe not a good thing because I think they all kind of clear out of there. So that's where we use that wonderful exchange between Bo-Katan and Boba in particular, and sort of like again this wonderful illumination, this illuminating conversation on sort of Boba's he doesn't have a role in Mandalorian society, but the way he's viewed by other Mandalorians in particular is very interesting, and you sort of see a bit of the ugly side of Bo-Katan in this scene where she's openly mocking Boba for being a clone, and he's just basically like a specimen, a lab experiment in a lot of senses, and how he's no different than the other thousands of clones that she has seen or engaged with over the years. It's important to note that stuff because we've talked a little bit about Bo-Katan and her past. Bo-Katan has a single-minded determination to be the ruler of Mandalore again and to bring the Mandalorians together. And that's kind of always been her objective, is what's best for the people. But the ways in which she's gone about doing it over the years, from Star Wars: The Clone Wars to Star Wars Rebels, like her actions don't always put her on the side of right, and so she can be a bit nasty, if it comes to somebody who is taking shots, basically. I mean, Boba's not he's not coming out and aggressively mocking her or criticizing her necessarily, but she's not going to take him insulting her plans to bring Mandalore back. I mean, they have the exchange or how the Empire turned Mandalore into glass, and now it's not even worth going back and trying to save. But obviously, Bo-Katan feels very, very differently about that, and Bo's her line of thought, her methodology, all these things, we have to pay attention to these because as great a character as she is, again, she has her agenda, and it may conflict with Din Djarin's agenda. I mean, you remember, she initially rejects helping him. It's not until he puts out that, like, I can get you to Moff Gideon. I have the coordinates. I can get you within a stone's throw of that darksaber you're looking for so badly. So, Bo is not like, I suppose noble is the right word. We don't want to confuse Bo as Bo-Katan as this sort of like noble Mandalorian who's just out for the good of everything. He's like, no. Bo has Bo's agenda. Is it for the betterment of her people? It sounds like it is, but we'll see how that works out. And we'll talk a little bit more about Bo-Katan later in the episode because a lot happens, especially at the end, towards the climax of the episode. So Bo's motives and her agenda definitely come into play later on. She is a great ally to the Mandalorian. I don't want to knock that at all. And again, I love seeing that character brought to life, and I love seeing Katie Sackhoff be the one to bring her to life. So it's always a treat for me to see that character on screen because I think she's a complex character. I think she's very very interesting in a lot of regards because of how her sort of ideology is so different that being on the side of right isn't the most important thing to her. It's being true to what she believes, and there's something fascinating about that with the character. And so do not take my open criticism of her here as me not liking that character. I think that character is fascinating. I love the different shades to that character, and I hope we get a chance to see more of that explored in The Mandalorian or in one of the other shows that we've talked about coming forward from Lucasfilm and Disney. So that's exciting stuff. A great conversation, sets things up. It brings Bo, it brings Casca onto the ship. By the way, a great little tussle between Boba and Koska occurs, where I love the use of the jetpack as a way to sort of get leverage on Boba Fett, a person with some a little bit like height-wise are about the same, but I mean Boba's got like a build to him. He's got some weight on her, and Koska's able to leverage that with the rocket pack. Whips Boba into like a little bit of a hurricanrana. It looked like little Rey Mysterio action going on. Though that might be one of Sasha's moves from WWE. I don't know for sure. I have a couple wrestling friends who would wrestling fan friends. They're not actual wrestlers. I don't have those kind of friends, unfortunately. But they'll let me know if I got the right move on that one. So everyone comes together. We get together on Slave One. Dr. Pershing's going to give us some information. They come up with a plan. A really fun, I think it's a fun scene to watch the way they kind of engage with each other and construct this battle plan to take on a Imperial cruiser. Now, what's great about the scene too is they tell us right off the bat. One of the big pieces of information is that that is not a fully crewed ship, which that was sort of my thought going into this episode. I think I talked a little bit last week about it, how I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. Like 4 or 5 people versus an entire battle cruiser worth of Imperials seemed like a bit of a mismatch. They tell us right off the bat. This is a cruiser that runs on basically a skeleton crew. Like minimal crewmen are needed. It seems like it's a ship mostly dedicated to the Dark Trooper program, whatever you want to call it. So minimal staffing makes it a lot more manageable, I think, for our heroes to take the cruiser on, and a little bit more believable too, because I was prepared to have a really hard time if they were able to take over like an Imperial cruiser with like hundreds, possibly thousands of Imperials on it. But this makes a lot more sense, so that was good to know. So they have a plan. They're going to use that captured Imperial shuttle, and that'll be they'll come out of hyperspace. Boba's going to be chasing them, shooting at them. The strike team will be on the shuttle. The shuttle will crash into the hangar of the Imperials, and then we have a boarding party, and Boba Fett will take off before the TIE fighters and the cannons on board the cruiser come after him. There's a little bit of some wonkiness with that plan. It's not a bad plan, but it's not my favorite plan either. Mostly because as it's playing out, and again, a great scene because I love the space battle aspect of it. And now granted, it's a show. Boba's not really trying to kill them or blow them up. But I love seeing the space battles all the same. And, you get TIE fighters, which is always a lot of fun. But I think the concern I have about this scene is Moff Gideon is on the bridge. He is aware of what's going on. Din Djarin warned him last week that he was coming for him. So did Moff Gideon not take him seriously, or not make any real preparations, or make any sort of contingency plans in case something crazy and unexpected happened, like an Imperial shuttle just appearing out of hyperspace with Slave One behind it? So he's standing on the bridge, kind of watching these events unfold. He orders the TIE fighters to go out and whatnot. I think what I found interesting about this was that, at the end of season 1, we saw that Moff Gideon has no problem mowing down his own troops in order to achieve his agenda and to achieve his objectives. So if you're aware that Din Djarin's coming for you, and there's a rather strange set of circumstances going on, I guess I question, why didn't Moff Gideon, kind of figure this one out ahead of time and be like, oh, well, here's what's going on here, so let's just blow up that shuttle. And if we're wrong, but at least we're not dead or captured or withstanding a siege from a contingent of however many troops. I'm assuming they don't know that. So that was kind of like my only little quirk with the episode, I think, I was like, oh, I thought Moff Gideon might be a little bit more ruthless here and just blow that starship out of the air and maybe, see through the ruse, and they still have to like crash the ship into the cruiser to get on board, but it'd be a little bit more of a challenge. They didn't go that route, and that's fine because it was a fun. It's a fun scene, and it's shot very, very well, and I like the fact that as soon as the cruiser, as soon as the Imperial shuttle is in the hangar, I mean, the action just begins, and it's pretty wild stuff. Now remember, our good friend Boba Fett has taken off in Slave One. He hyperspaces out of there, And that's it. Boba doesn't come back to help later on. I don't know why. That seemed a little odd to me as well, that Boba wouldn't come back to help take part in the siege. But, that is what it is. In the meantime, we have a great team assembled. We have Bo-Katan. We have Koska Reeves. We have Fennec Shand. We have Cara Dune. And they are what Bo-Katan is called kind of the diversionary force. They're going to go in there and they're going to attract a crowd. They're going to get stormtroopers to follow them. They're going to get troopers to follow them. They're going to cause the commotion. And once everyone's after them, Din Djarin will exit the shuttlecraft, and he's going to make his way to the brig where little Grogu is being held. And on his way, he will stop by the hangar, the lab, whatever you want to call it, where the Dark Troopers are being kept, where they are powered down, because apparently they draw a ton of power. So they have to be powered up before they can be deployed. So they are in sort of cold storage, basically, until they are called upon. And so Jin's going to get over there on his way to the brig. He's going to use Pershing's code cylinder, lock the door so that they don't have to deal with the Dark Troopers at all, because those Dark Troopers sound pretty fierce. And we're also given the information that this phase, we're in phase 3 Dark Trooper here. There is no human in there. No, I think we could tell that very much when we saw them at the tail end of at the tail end of chapter 6. They looked very mechanical, very battle droidy at the same time. So this kind of confirms that theory, and makes it so that if I guess the best way to put it is this is like the sort of the final evolution of the Dark Trooper into being like this ultimate battle droid, and we do get a chance to see how badass they are, which is some really, really good stuff. Really strong action. Again, the action sequences in this are great, especially as Fennec and Bo and Cara Dune are laying just waste to Imperial stormtroopers left and right. They I don't know if they miss a shot in this sequence. The stormtroopers, they miss plenty, but that's pretty much on brand for them. It's also at this point that Moff Gideon issues the command for the Dark Troopers to begin powering up. So our heroes know from Dr. Pershing that there is a window of opportunity before the Dark Troopers come after them. That's why Din has to get to that cold storage area where they are, so he can lock them in before they become a problem. The strike team can handle Imperial troopers and officers and things like that, but once those Dark Troopers enter the fray, it's going to be a very, very different story. Another great action sequence between our strike team is when they're on that little bridge, going from one section of the ship to the other, and Bo, Katan, and Koska rocket off. And it's just Cara and Fennec on there blowing away stormtroopers, and then another squad of troopers arrives, and Bo and Koska swoop out of the air to blow the rest of the troopers away. Really great stuff. The action sequences alone are so top notch in this episode, so fun, and again, this strike team just kicks so much butt. It's really, really great, so good. Fun action scene. I mean, it's just you're captivated the entire time. You're watching them blow away stormtroopers, which is one of our favorite things in Star Wars. And then you get Din sneaking around and trying to rescue little Grogu. You also get to see y'all remember the Death Star droid? That the droid kind of has like C-3PO's body, but he has like that weird kind of oblong head. The RA-7 droid, also known as the Death Star droid. He makes a little appearance too. We caught a flash of one of these droids about back in season 1. I'm trying to think what episode it was, or what chapter. I want to say it was in 7, because I don't think it was in the finale. 7 makes the most sense to me, but I could be mistaken. If anyone wants to correct me, please do so. You know where to find me. I'm on those social medias. I think it's so at this point with our strike team. This is when Cara Dune starts having problems with her blaster. She starts wailing on stormtroopers with just beating them with like using it like a club and just beating the holy crap out of them. Yeah, again, I love these action sequences so much, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. The siege of the bridge is just completely top notch. When they finally reach the bridge of the ship, and again they just basically kick down the doors, metaphorically speaking, of course, and just blow the bridge crew straight to heck. Again, you're just watching this and you're like you just love this action so much. It's so top notch, so well done. The performances of the actors, of our strike team actors in particular, is so convincing. I think they're all very, very good in these scenes, and Peyton Reed shoots this so well. I think this is he's Peyton's direction, I would say, is kind of subtle. It's like a subtle good. It doesn't leap out at you in the way like some of the Robert Rodriguez episode did earlier in the season, or even the stuff that Rick Famuyiwa was doing last week. Peyton works a little bit differently, and it's like I said, it's sort of like this understated awesome that he does, and I think he was a pretty smart choice for this episode, but not because of the way he handles the action. I think he handles it expertly, but I think where he really shines is at the end of the episode. And we'll talk about that as we get there. But I think it's important that we get to one of the more emotional parts of this episode. One of the more let's just call it heartbreaking. Actually, I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I forgot. Din, he does get to the cold storage for those Dark Troopers, but he gets there a little late. The door's opening already before he can shove that code cylinder in there. And as he does so, one Dark Trooper is able to get out, and you have a great battle between Din Djarin and that Dark Trooper, and we really get a taste of how powerful and how strong the Dark Troopers are, and how they are just going to be a truly fearsome, unstoppable force for Moff Gideon if they were ever to be unleashed against the New Republic, or even just against our heroes on this ship. So locking them in there is vital if they're going to pull this off and rescue Grogu. But one gets out, and it turns into an epic battle, and Din's basically saved because he has the unbreakable Beskar armor on. The scene where the droid has him up against the wall, the Dark Trooper has him up against the wall and is just punching his head mercilessly, and you're seeing, again, I think this it's kind of like a subtly shot, but every time you see the droid, I keep saying droid, I just want to call them Dark Troopers. That's probably a better terminology here. It's more accurate. Every time you see that Dark Trooper punching Din right in the face, the first thing you notice is, like, yes, he's punching him in the face and it's not damaging the Beskar, but Din's head is being driven further back into the hull of the ship. It's pretty wild. It's pretty intense. Din eventually uses the flamethrower to get away from him. He has to use his whistling birds. Every trick that Din Djarin has, he has to employ here, and eventually he's able to get the better of the Dark Trooper with the help of the Beskar spear that he liberated in the Ahsoka episode back in 13. So that comes in pretty handy there. And then he uses that spear to beat the holy crap out of some stormtroopers that are guarding little baby Grogu's prison cell in the brig there. All right, sorry, I had to pause the show for a moment while things were happening in real life. So yes, Din Djarin uses the spear, smashes the holy heck out of some stormtroopers, crushes one's neck with it in a vicious chokehold with a Beskar spear. Does not sound like a fun way to go out. But this is so that he can enter Grogu's prison cell and liberate him from the shackles of oppression of the Empire. And oh boy, listen, let me tell you, when the door opens and we see Moff Gideon standing there next to little Grogu with the Darksaber in his hand, held out basically above Grogu's head, and little Grogu in those stun cuffs. Oh, the heartbreak. Oh, the heartbreak. Oh, to see that sweet little baby in those stun cuffs was, that's a punch in the soul right there, folks. Now I'm gonna play a little bit of that scene here. Let's play a little bit of the scene right now. Their little exchange here. I'm gonna let this run for a little bit, but I'm probably gonna edit it down, and you won't even notice. I'm gonna try and be slick. Here we go. Oh, there's those sun cuffs. It's like, let me out, save me.
Drop the blaster. Slowly.
Giancarlo's so good in this role. I love him as Moff
Now
Gideon.
kick it over to me. Very nice.
Give me the kid.
The kid is just fine where he is.
menace.
Mesmerizing, isn't it? Used to belong to Bo-Katan.
Pay attention. Important stuff.
Yes, I know you've been traveling with Bo-Katan. A friendly piece of advice. Assume that I know everything. Like the fact that your wrist launcher has fired its one and only salvo.
Where is this going?
This is where it's going. I'm guessing that Bo-Katan and her boarding party have arrived at the bridge, seeking me, or, more accurately, this.
The Darksaber. He's talking about the Darksaber.
But I'm not there. And I imagine that they've killed everyone on the bridge, being the murderous savages that they are. And now, they're beginning to panic. You see, she wants this. Do you know why? Because it brings power. Whoever wields this sword has the right to lay claim to the Mandalorian throne.
These are important nuggets.
You keep it. I just want the kid.
Very well. I've already got what I want from him. His blood. All I wanted was to study his blood. This child is extremely gifted and has been blessed with rare properties that have the potential to bring order back to the galaxy.
Okay, I want to pause it. That's where we'll stop this playback of the scene. We don't need to go through the whole thing. But a lot of interesting stuff there about Bo-Katan, about the Darksaber, and a little bit more about what Gideon is doing with Grogu's blood, but still not the answers that we're looking for. And I think we have to revisit the idea that Gideon is again trying to create his own force wielders, but is he trying to revive the Emperor at the same time? Talking about the power to bring order back to the galaxy. Is Gideon somehow involved in some sort of cloning operation, something involving a resurrection of Palpatine as well? You know, that Pershing's specialty is cloning. It's possible. While I am loath to admit the possibility that they are trying to connect this with the sequel trilogy in any way, because I have strong feelings about the sequel trilogy, and most of them are not positive feelings, particularly for the last one, and the resurrection of Palpatine to begin with. But you have to wonder, you have to be curious. You know, he's talking about the blood and how he's powerful, and again, that line, bring order back to the galaxy. So is there some sort of plan in place of Gideon's, or is he just trying to bring force users that he can wield? That's still the theory that I'm going with. He wants his own force users that would help implement his vision of the Empire moving forward. But we don't know for sure. So Gideon makes it sound like everything's all good. You know what? Take the kid. It's fine. I got what I need. You're not worried about the Darksaber. Yeah, you guys can just get out of here. We're gonna go our separate ways, and that's gonna be that. And our business is concluded here. Except Moff Gideon is a dirty, lying Imperial scumbag. So when Din Djarin's back is turned, Moff Gideon fires up that Darksaber, and it's go time. And again, another just wonderful action sequence, and it's what's been teased for quite a while now, basically since the end of season 1, when we saw that Moff Gideon had the Darksaber. This delivers on so many levels. Well, you know, at first when Din is on the defensive, and he's having to block the Darksaber with his Beskar armor, and you know, it's just like, you know, arms up, any point of contact, he's trying to get Beskar between him and the blade. And once he's finally able to get the Beskar spear out to kind of go on the attack and the defense, the fight really elevates into something really fun and unique, because it's not often we see weapons that can go toe to toe with a lightsaber. And remember, that's essentially what a Darksaber is. It is essentially a lightsaber. But like, you know, lightsabers and Darksabers, no matter what, can't cut the Beskar with it. It's one of the few metals in the Star Wars galaxy that is resistant to lightsaber action. So a fun battle ensues, and again, like I said, when that Beskar spear comes into play, and I love when they sort of lock onto each other. You know, Gideon just bringing that blade down on Din, and he blocks it with the spear. And I love the way you would see the Beskar spear heating up. You know, you'd see like that point of contact with the Darksaber, and then just heat radiating out into the spear. And you know, not in a hugely way that's going to burn Din Djarin's hands or anything like that and affect the combat, but it's just like one of those like fun little details of like the energy involved in the Darksaber on a metal like Beskar. Just made it really, really fun, and it's a great battle. And you know, remember, this is a show not known for having to do a lot with lightsabers so far, but they do a heck of a job with this great battle, and eventually our hero is able to prevail. He is the better warrior. I think we all know that. So he is able to get the best of Moff Gideon. He is able to disarm him. He knocks the Darksaber away from him, and puts the spear to the tip of the tip of the spear to the point of it to his neck. Jesus, I really botched that sentence. He puts the tip of the spear to his neck, but spares his life. He knows that Bo-Katan wants Moff Gideon for herself, but he's walking into a trap, and Gideon knows that, and he says as much when he tells Din Djarin. I forget the exact line, but something along the lines of "This should be fun." Actually, you know what? We have the technology. Let's go back and play it, and we'll get the answer right now.
You're sparing my life. Well, this should be interesting.
Yeah, there it is. This should be interesting because Moff Gideon knows exactly what's going to happen, and like let's let this play out, because Bo-Katan's standing on the bridge. You know, they seized the bridge. They couldn't find Gideon. They were very upset about it. I forget if I've already talked about that. I had a little interruption in the middle of the show. I might be a little off track, so I apologize. But yeah, after they seized the bridge and Gideon wasn't there, they were not stoked. So what's about to happen? This won't translate well on the podcast, but I know you remember the scene. You watched the show. But the scene here, as Din brings Moff Gideon in, Darksaber in his hand, and the look on Bo-Katan's face is priceless. Complete indignation. Let's let it play.
What happened?
He brought him in alive, that's what happened. And now the New Republic's gonna have to double the payment.
That's not what she's talking about.
Why don't you kill him now and take it?
I'm just gonna let this whole thing play out. It's so good.
It's yours now.
What is?
The Darksaber. It belongs to you.
No, it belongs to her.
She can't take it. It must be won in battle. In order for her to wield the Darksaber again, she would need to defeat you in combat.
I yield. It's yours.
Oh, no. It doesn't work that way. The Darksaber doesn't have power. The story does. Without that blade, she's a pretender to the throne.
He's right.
Come on, just take it.
All right, so that's where we'll stop. As the Dark Troopers are making their way back to the ship. I neglected to mention that part where Din shoots the Dark Troopers out into space. I think we all knew that was going to come back to get them because they are battle droids, basically. We know they can fly. We know they're jet powered. It was only a matter of time for the Dark Troopers made their presence known once again in this episode, and they do so in a glorious fashion. But before we get into that, let's talk about that scene, because there are questions and there are contradictions potentially. This podcast has been a big proponent of encouraging people to go back and watch Star Wars: The Clone Wars and watch Star Wars Rebels, especially if you've not seen them before. And we are going to go back and do that on this podcast while we wait for the new season to come, later next year. But let's get into let's kind of get into brass tacks right now. The implied contradiction is that that Bo-Katan cannot just be handed the Darksaber from Din Djarin. It cannot be yielded. This potentially contradicts what we saw in Star Wars Rebels when Sabine Wren presents the Darksaber to Bo-Katan in that series, and she happily takes it so that she can attempt to bring Mandalore together in that series at that point. I think this is one of those scenes where I think the devil's in the details. There's it's Moff Gideon's choice of verbiage might be a clue to what's going on here and why it's not quite the contradiction that we might think it is. And that is because she lost the Darksaber. So to get it back, it must be won in battle. Perhaps there is some kind of, I don't know, perhaps it's allowed to be bequeathed to someone or turned over to someone when it's not found, or when it's not in a battle situation. Remember, Sabine finds the Darksaber. It wasn't necessarily. I might be misspeaking on that, but I do believe that the devil is in the details on this one, and that since Bo-Katan lost the Darksaber and she didn't die in the process, to get it back, she may have to win it in battle to kind of earn her honor back. And in that regard, she was obviously bested for it once by Moff Gideon or somebody else. We don't know that story just yet, but that's gonna be an interesting story to learn and to find out about how Bo-Katan lost the Darksaber in the first place after getting it from Sabine Wren in Star Wars Rebels. I'll have to I also got to retouch. I have to touch base again with how Sabine came across it too. I want to say I thought she found it, but maybe there might be more to that story, so I don't want to go down that road necessarily. Hey, anyone listening, if you recall offhand, you know where to find me. At Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. Key stuff. But it's going to be fun to go back and watch those shows again for this podcast, and I hope everyone sticks around for that journey, because it's going to be a good time. All right, but back to this show. Again, I just want to talk about that because I don't think it's the contradiction that a lot of sci-fi sites are making it out to be just yet. There may be some play here that we aren't quite aware of just yet, but this show's has done a really good job of connecting dots for us, and we have to give them the benefit of the doubt at this point because they have done so much right, and they've earned our trust, they've earned our faith, and that has been richly rewarded in these 2 seasons of The Mandalorian thus far. All right, so let's get back into our narrative for this episode. The Dark Troopers are coming back. They're storming the shuttle. There's an entire platoon of them. Moff Gideon taunts our heroes. Those Dark Troopers are going to retake the ship. They're going to storm the bridge and kill everyone on it except Gideon and the child. And there's nothing they can do to stop it. Gideon points out how much trouble Din had with just one, and now there's an entire platoon of them out there coming to get them. And again, we're talking about there's only 5 heroes, and even with Boba Fett's help, it's probably an unwinnable battle against these mighty Dark Troopers, especially in the sheer numbers that they are swarming the cruiser in. So we get a really tense scene here, really tense action oriented stuff with the Dark Troopers and our heroes held up on the bridge as it's basically under attack as the Dark Troopers use their bionic robot strength to pound the crap out of the doors. You get to hear Fennec Shand asked for the blast doors to be lowered, which is super fun and exciting. But these are Mandalorians we're talking about. These are brave warriors. Even Fennec, not a Mandalorian, but still a brave soldier, no less. And Cara Dune, a soldier of the New Republic, of the Rebel Alliance, and she is not going to go down without a fight. So our heroes are bracing for their Alamo, their last stand, And again really tense, really dramatic, and you're wondering like what's going to happen, how are they going to get out of this, what's it going to take, what kind of miracle is going to happen here to save our heroes, or is this going to go down a dark road? And I'll be perfectly honest, I thought this episode would have darker moments to it with heroes dying and possibly Gideon having the upper hand and possibly even winning the day, capturing Din Djarin and recapturing the child. I thought it could go a lot of different directions. I really thought we get a couple curveballs thrown our way. I thought Jon Favreau might get, again, another little misdirect from Favreau, and the Empire has the upper hand as season 2 ends. That's not to be. That is not to be. And again, I lost track when I got interrupted earlier. If I talked about how cool it was to see the Dark Troopers power up, but watching them re-enter the cruiser is also equally cool. And it's I don't know. It's a little. It might be sacrilege to say this, but it's a little evocative of Cylons. The way these Dark Troopers with their red glowing eyes. And just kind of they say nothing. They just loom large and cast up a large shadow at the same time. And Moff Gideon laying on the floor of the bridge with this smug look of satisfaction on his face as he knows exactly what's about to happen. And I kind of want to play the scene out just a little bit longer because, well, there's some good stuff coming. I'm trying to find the exact point I want it to be at. Sorry, here we go. I think it's right here. Our heroes getting ready for the last stand. It helps if I turn the volume on. There it is. You know that sound.
X-Wing.
One X-Wing? Great. We're saved.
Incoming craft,
and
identify
she
yourself.
says it sarcastically. Yeah, but this is where we have to pause it. As the music shifts. And we get more of a John Williams-esque score. Grogu's ears perk up. He seems not as downtrodden, not as resigned to his fate as this X-Wing arrives. I'll pause it right there. It was getting a little loud anyways. Everything seems to shift as this X-Wing arrives. And at first you wonder, is this Trapper Wolf or Carson Teva? We've seen them a couple times this season, this lone X-Wing. But at the same time, in the back of my brain, I sort of had this, I was like, no, it couldn't be. It couldn't be. And then again, no response, no communications, but everything changes. The Dark Troopers stop their pounding. They stop their attempt to break into the bridge. They redraw their arms, their weapons, and their blasters, I should say, and they prepare for a new fight. And Moff Gideon's attitude, Moff Gideon's tone, his expression, his confidence goes away very quickly as the Dark Troopers have reassessed the threats that are coming their way. And what happens next? Again, I think this is a well directed, but in such a subtle way because of what we get to see now, which is this incredible action sequence. But we're watching it from our hero's perspective, from Din and Bo-Katan's and Cara Dune's, as they are held up in the bridge, and they can only watch on the security cam footage that's available to them, as a lone figure begins to make his way through the starship. And I'm not gonna lie, this is when I started getting really choked up in the show because, again, that music's playing and it's hitting you in a subconscious way. You're like, wait a second, no, it can't be. And you're entertaining the notion. I think we all entertain the notion. Well, okay, maybe it's the Jedi. Like we talked about at the beginning, I wasn't convinced that this was the direction they were going to go, until I started seeing it happen in front of my face, the way our heroes do, which I think is part of the fun of this episode, the joy of this episode. Is it fan servicey to an extent? Maybe. But I mean, we have to be honest. Who is the most powerful Jedi in the Star Wars galaxy at this point in Star Wars in Star Wars lore. It's Luke Skywalker. Who else could he have been communing with? I know we had a lot of fun with fan theories about, Cal Kestis and some of the other characters who have populated some of the other pieces of mythology. Corky Kryze was a big fun rumor for a little while, though it didn't seem to jive that he wouldn't know what was going on with Bo-Katan. But again, that's beside the point. But there were so many fun rumors and so much fun speculation. And again, I talked about it on Tomcast Popcast when that image of Sebastian Stan was going around with his face sort of blended into Luke Skywalker's Return of the Jedi look, and I was like, oh, that would be fun, but that'll never happen, and it didn't. So I was right on that one. But bringing Luke in and sort of hitting that sort of perfect blend of everything, really. I mean, it's what's the way I want to say? I can't even think of the way I want to describe it to you guys. But like I said, I began to get really choked up during this scene, during this again, as our heroes are watching this on the screens, on the security cam screens, and we're cutting from them watching the screens to what's happening in the hallways, in the concourses. It should be pointed out that a British actor named Max Lloyd-Jones is the one wearing the robes. He is the Luke Skywalker body double at this point, but he does a pretty darn nice job. And I love the way that the reveal is sort of done as well. One of the really fun aspects of it, because it is sort of a mystery at first. Yeah, granted, the X-Wing is sort of like the giveaway, but what's really fun about the way it plays out is, okay, you have the flowing robes. That's your first sign, but that could be any Jedi at that point. But it's what happens next. Again, the first glimpses you see of him doing stuff, of this Jedi doing stuff. You don't even know it's a him at this point, but you see the lightsaber, you see the twirling robe, and it isn't until we cut away. And also, by the way, my love of Moff Gideon's face as he's seeing what's occurring on the screen. And I think that sort of helps to reinforce some of our ideas about why he wants his own force wielders to control. I think he has a fear of the power that the Jedi wield, and that's why he wants it for himself. Maybe he can't give himself force powers, but he can create beings that he can then control and deploy in ways that he sees fit. But this is when it's right after that look on his face that's just sort of shifting from like that false bravado that he showed earlier to just like fear. I mean, it's just fear in his face. Like, he knows it's over. His Dark Troopers don't stand a chance against this Jedi Knight. And this is when we cut to our first live action view of this Jedi. And the first thing we see, the green lightsaber. And you're like, no. And you're not believing it, but you're believing it as it's happening, as you're watching this Jedi just cut through these Dark Troopers like it's nobody's business, and everyone on the bridge is watching on the security cams basically in awe as his being just mows through them, slices them like butter. Again, and you start to see the signs of the classic Luke costume, and you see the black glove on the right hand, and that's when you know. I mean, if you don't know at this point, you know now. and Moff Gideon, fearing that it's all over, decides it's time to take action. He concealed a weapon. He takes out Casca Reeves with it, though not permanently, because we do see here later on. And he attempts to kill the child. He attempts to kill Grogu. Din Djarin swoops in at the last moment to take the blaster bolts himself right into his chest once again saving Grogu's life. And I love what happens next here, because everyone draws down on Gideon. And he makes the play that you would sort of expect him to make at this point, which is like, oh, I'm not going to be captured, so it's time to end it all. But not on Cara Dune's watch. She knows what an important prisoner he will be. So she knocks the gun out, smacks him with the butt of the rifle, and then we go back to our Jedi friend, mowing down Dark Troopers, and it's so good. And you get little Grogu touching the screen. And this is when I start to get... I'm already choked up at this point of the show. But watching Grogu sort of connect with this character on the screen, this being that we can only assume he connected with on that scene stone, it's really touching. It's really sweet. And again, Grogu's hand on that screen is just something else. And it sort of symbolizes all the like this sort of like this injection of hope into the story. Like these characters were dead meat. And then you have the great scene with the Dark Troopers waiting for the elevator to arrive that will have our Jedi friend on it. And they're just waiting. And again, the tension, they do a great job with this tension because our heroes still don't know what's going to happen. And it's Jedi nighttime at this point. And our Jedi just cuts them down, deflecting blaster bolts, mowing through the troopers, using the Force, all of it. Everything we've wanted to see from the New Hope, from our main Jedi. And it's, like I said, at this point, if you don't know who we're talking about here, you know it, and they're gonna show it too. But you know it's Luke. You know it's Luke. I don't know why I'm dancing around it. We know it's Luke, but this last bit here where he crushes the Dark Trooper with the Force is just something else. And I'll be perfectly honest, I wasn't sure that they were gonna do what they did. I wasn't sure we were actually going to get to see Luke. But again, they had the stones to do it. Now, this is also when it gets really important, too, because we have to pay attention. Grogu has a connection to Luke. He is trying to sort of communicate that to Din Djarin, that he is a friend, he is an ally, he is someone who can be trusted, and that's an important aspect of things. And so Din, he believes him, so he lets them in. He opens the blast doors, despite Fennec's kind of objection to it. Luke enters through the smoke, almost in a Vader-esque kind of way. The green lightsaber still ignited. And this is when this is when it happens. This is when we get our reveal, the hood lifted, and it's just, I don't know. I sort of just gasped. I mean, when it was confirmed, like when you see his face. The digitally de-aged face of Mark Hamill, aka Luke Skywalker. You have the theme music playing in the background.
Are you a Jedi?
Like his father before him. Now, listen, I know it would have been cheesy. But if at this point he had said, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue you, I think I might have died. I think there's a good possibility my mind and my heart would have exploded at the exact same time. And I wouldn't be with us to record this podcast. And this is I'm going to try and play the scene as I'm talking here because it's a fairly quiet scene. There's only a little bit of dialogue. But these final moments of this episode are so emotionally impactful. I won't lie, I was crying like a little baby at moments coming up in this. It was everything that I wanted it to be and so much more. Again, Luke's face is a little video gamey. Looks a little bit like Battlefront 2, Luke.
He doesn't want to go with you.
He wants your permission. He is strong with the Force, but talent without training is nothing. I will give my life to protect the child, but he will not be safe until he masters his abilities.
Again, and then this is when I started just bawling in my living room at 3:40 in the morning. It's so touching. It's so sweet. This season of The Mandalorian has done such a wonderful job of instilling an emotional core between these two characters and their bond. And this moment, I'm watching it now and I'm getting misty again already. And I've seen the episode 4 times already, for God's sake. But when little Grogu reaches out to touch his helmet, and Din lifts his own to show his face to Grogu, it gets me every time. I cannot lie to you all right now. You can probably hear it in my voice. But it's so wonderful. It's just, we all love Grogu so much, and the way he reaches out and touches Din's face, probably for the first time, sees his face for the first time. It shows the journey that Din Djarin's gone on. yeah, how different he is, how changed he is from his experiences with Grogu. And it's a quiet moment. There's only a little bit of dialogue here with Pedro and Grogu. But if you have any doubts about Pedro Pascal's acting abilities, I mean, this does it all. And then here, one of the final treats for the episode, the return of one of our oldest friends. And little Grogu instantly connects with R2-D2. Again, such a quiet moment, so many quiet emotional moments in this episode. Again, one of the reasons why I think it's fair to say that Peyton Reed directs this episode so well in such a subtle, understated sort of way. But he hits these wonderful emotional high notes. And then the nod between Luke and Din. And again, the sort of instant bond between Grogu and R2-D2 is so fascinating. And then Grogu wants Luke to pick him up. And there's no words anymore in this episode. I mean, it's just quiet the rest of the way as these characters are having this emotional goodbye with each other. Sorry, I'm losing it again.
May the Force be with you.
And they watch him go down the corridor, and everyone's just standing there. It's pretty wild as they're watching Din sort of say goodbye to his adopted son, and a child saying goodbye to his adopted father, and going off to learn the ways of the Force with the only Jedi Master left in the galaxy. And the music just so powerful, so resonant, so well done. Come on, I wasn't the only one crying, was I? Sobbing like a baby on my couch, 3:30 in the morning, not alcohol-induced for once. And as the elevator doors close, we close the chapter. Chapter 8 of The Mandalorian is done. Or is it? Or is it? Before we get there, we have to talk about it a little bit more. That's been the biggest thing from this season of The Mandalorian, to me, has been this the instilling of this emotional core as we've explored the bond between Grogu, between Din Djarin. So interesting, so fascinating. You know, The Mandalorian's always been a show that's been. I don't mean this as a knock by any means. It's a show that's a little light on plot. You know, it's not an overly complicated story. It's Star Wars. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. We know the stories. We know what Star Wars is at its heart, at its core, and that's what they do so well in the show. Yes, it's got the trappings of the westerns, of the samurai movies, of the things that inspired Star Wars to begin with. But it's always been about characters, and always about like our bond to these characters. And for once, we get to see a bond between two characters in the Star Wars universe that resonates with us in a new, unique way. You know, sure, we were there for Han and Leia and their journey and their discovery of falling in love with each other, and that was a blast. That was a lot of fun. But you know, I got into it with I didn't get into it like in a verbally combative sort of way, but someone made a remark on Twitter how the father-son relationship between Din Djarin and baby Grogu is the best father-son relationship in Star Wars, and I joked back. I was like, well, the bar's pretty low for that, but it's really true. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. But it's such a fun way to explore Star Wars in a new way, and to have like that emotional connection, because that's, you know, Star Wars is fun, but if it doesn't connect with you in a certain way, it's just kind of surface material. And again, being a show with sort of a minimalist approach to plotting, and again, I don't mean that as a knock. One of the reasons why the show's so great is it's the approachability. It's not bogged down in too much of his own mythology, and anyone can watch it and not have to know 40 years of old stuff. That's a strength of the show. So I don't mean it as a knock by any stretch of what I'm saying. Don't get it twisted. I'm not knocking it. All right, so let's. I've gushed about my gushing long enough. Let's get to the next trick up their sleeve. A post-credit scene that I did not expect in the least, and I had no idea was coming. I'll be honest, on my first viewing this morning, it's like 3:45ish or so as the episode's wrapping up, and I'm just letting the credits play because honestly, my jaw is on the floor. I have tears running down my face. I'm very emotional. I just saw the return of Luke Skywalker, albeit a weirdly digital Luke Skywalker, but Luke Skywalker nonetheless. And I got to see Luke Skywalker do the most Luke Skywalker-y thing that I had never seen before, which was just go through Imperial forces with a lightsaber, which was a privilege of something that we hadn't seen in the movies necessarily. We saw him dispatch Jabba's goons in Return of the Jedi, but he never, went through, did use the Force in quite the way he does in this episode, and it's something to behold for sure. But again, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Disney or Star Wars going full Marvel here. Post-credit scene, and it is awesome. We go back to Tatooine. We recognize those twin suns right away. We pan left, and we recognize that building right away too. We're right back in Jabba's palace, and we go inside to the throne room where we see we see Bib Fortuna of all characters. Bib Fortuna, who in old mythology was turned into one of those robot spiders that with the little brain in the jar. That's old canon. This new canon, Bib Fortuna survives, and he seems to sort of be filling the void of Jabba the Hutt, or at least attempting to. It seems like he's doing it rather unsuccessfully, as not much is going on in the palace, in Jabba's palace. Remember, when we go to Jabba's palace, it's a bustling hive of activity of kind of greed and avarice and crime and scum and villainy and all that good stuff that we know from Star Wars. It's very subdued. It's very subtle. It's very low key what's going on there. Bib Fortuna does not seem to be doing a really good job of running Jabba's criminal empire, of being the next level space gangster that Jabba was. And I think that's something that's been reflected on our visits to Tatooine. Back in season 1 when we were in Mos Eisley, and then again in the first episode this season when we go back to Tatooine. It seems that the presence of crime is significantly lower without Jabba around, and I think that's something I even commented on in those Mos Eisley episodes about how Mos Eisley's not this bustling, thriving spaceport anymore, and it seems that a lot of that has to do with the void of Jabba the Hutt and his criminal activities and bringing all these nefarious, scoundrel-like characters to Tatooine to conduct business for him. So I suspect that maybe that was a bit of foreshadowing in a lot of regards. But regardless of that, what happens is Fennec Shand arrives on the scene, blowing people away, killing Bib Fortuna's guards, leaves him alone for Boba Fett to walk into the scene, draw his gun on Bib Fortuna, and blow him away. And then knock his body out of the throne that's up on the pedestal, on the dais, where Jabba used to sit. And then Boba takes that throne for himself, with Fennec Shand as his right hand. And we get the announcement of the Book of Boba Fett, coming December 2021. That's next year, folks. That's right around the corner. What does that mean? What does that mean? We don't know. There's we know the speculation that's been out there that there was going to be a Boba Fett show. That seems to be confirmed. There was no announcement at the Lucasfilm meeting. At the Disney shareholder meeting. You remember we did that big episode last week where we talked about that, where we talked about all the shows that were announced, and there wasn't a Boba Fett show on there. Now, were they saving that for the big reveal at the end of this episode? Maybe, possibly. Or is this Book of Boba Fett going to be the Mandalorian season 3? And we're going to be left hanging on the adventures of Din Djarin and what's going to happen next with him and the Darksaber and Bo-Katan and Mandalore in general. Are we shifting focus? Is the show rebranding in season 3 and it's going to be Boba centric? This book of Boba Fett? Or is this a new show that will run concurrently with The Mandalorian? Remember, it's been said that The Mandalorian season 3 would debut October 2021. This is why we have questions. This is why we have to ask these questions. We don't know. And Disney/Lucasfilm is not saying anything. Now, it's very likely that they will wait the weekend. They will want everyone to have watched this episode by then. Like we talked about earlier with the spoilers and stuff. Not everyone watches this episode at midnight or at 3 a.m. like I do. Most of my friends watch this Friday evenings. Some people have to wait till Saturday evening to watch it because of their work schedules. Disney and Lucasfilm, I think, are very cognizant of that, and I think they're very respectful of that. So, they initially asked that people wait 72 hours before posting spoilers online. So I suspect Disney will do much the same, and they will wait until at least Monday, if at all, to clarify what the hell just happened at the end of this episode. Again, is this Boba Fett show going to run concurrently to season 3 of The Mandalorian? Or is this going to be season 3 of The Mandalorian? Do we shift to the book of Boba Fett and we take a break from the adventures of Din Djarin? I don't know. I was texting with a friend this morning while I was at work. I forget if he stays up late or if he gets up early to watch the episodes. But he speculated that, has Din's story come full circle now? And it's a fair question to ask. And it's a great question, and I don't have an answer for it, honestly. Like, it does feel like there's a certain level of completeness to Din Djarin's journey in the sense of his development from where we met him in season 1 to where we leave him at the end of season 2. And we didn't even talk about the significance of what he does in his final moments with Grogu, the removing of his helmet voluntarily. No life is on the line. They're in no danger. And he does it in front of a group of people. He does it in front of Luke Skywalker. He does it in front of Bo-Katan. In front of Koska Reeves. In front of Cara Dune. In front of Fennec Shand. And he does it by choice because of his love for that child. So has Din come full circle? Are we done with his journey? Remember, he wields the Darksaber now. He seems to have no interest in it. But does that mean that he's actually the perfect person to rule Mandalore? Think about that. Think about that. We've talked about Bo-Katan Kryze and her history. She is bound and determined to bring Mandalore back together. But she's also a big part of the rifts that have existed within the Mandalorian people. Being part of Death Watch. Being part of the reason why her sister was murdered by Darth Maul. Spoilers. Sorry. But you know what I mean. That character has history. And again, one of the reasons why I find Bo-Katan's character so interesting and so fascinating is because of her history and her decisions. And again, this character with like a sort of single-minded determinedness. And it doesn't matter if she's viewed as being on the right side or the wrong side of history. It's all about the goals and the objectives. And Bo-Katan wielded the Darksaber at one point. She was, by all accounts, the ruler of Mandalore, and she lost it. I don't think Din Djarin's journey is complete yet. That being said, I don't know. I don't know what happens next season because we don't have answers to that. A multitude of media outlets have reached out to Lucasfilm and to Disney to get clarification. Is the book of Boba Fett season 3 of The Mandalorian, or is it separate from The Mandalorian? Listen, I'm not going to lie. I'd love it to be separate because that means I get 2 shows to watch next December. It means we have twice the content for you wonderful people who are still listening to this podcast. But unfortunately, we don't have answers right now. I have been refreshing a bunch of news sites that I trust for this information. and nothing has been updated yet. They've all reached out to Lucasfilm. I've reached out to Lucasfilm. Okay, I didn't reach out to Lucasfilm. I have no pull whatsoever with Lucasfilm, so I didn't bother to reach out to them. Because I don't know how, but I was pretty sure they weren't going to respond to me. If they weren't going to respond to some of these other websites that I do follow, they definitely were going to respond to me. So, hey, we know we're small potatoes here at Mandovision, but our potatoes are getting bigger and bigger by the day, and that's all that matters in the long run. Mostly because of wonderful people like you who are listening to this show. So thank you so much. Again, that being said, if information breaks, we're gonna cover it. I'll release the Bantha tracks Monday as soon as I know more. But I guess at this point we have to ask the question: what do you want it to be? I'm assuming a lot of you are in the same boat as me. You want more Star Wars, more Mandalorian shows. Give me the Mandalorian season 3 and Book of Boba Fett season 1 in the same day. Just bring it. All the Star Wars all the time right now. I'm okay with that. We don't know. We honestly don't know. It's a little... Again, it's a little frustrating that we don't have this clarity. But I'm also okay with it too. I sort of like this. This is sort of old school cliffhanger in a way that we didn't really know we wanted, that we needed. We are a culture that is very much... give it to us now, immediate gratification, instant gratification. Having to wait for clarity, for information, maybe that'll do us a little bit of good. I don't know for sure, but yeah, we don't have it right now. We don't know if the Book of Boba Fett is a new show, or if it's going to be season 3 of The Mandalorian, and Din will take a back seat for a year or two, or however long it goes. I don't know if it's known what kind of contract Pedro Pascal has with the Star Wars folks. So I can't speculate too much on that. I just don't have enough of the information. I don't even, again, I don't have the words because I just don't have the information. Yeah, I don't know. Again, waiting is not going to be a bad thing. I think we're going to be okay. And I'll be here to provide information as soon as we get it made available. I'll whip out a Bantha tracks and share it with all of you. But again, do me a solid. Hit me up on social media. We're at Mando_Vision, and let me know what you want. Do you want a Boba show same time as a Din show? Are you okay if Din takes a break for a bit and we get this Boba show? Now, what's this Boba show going to be? Let's talk about that a little bit. All right, Boba Fett has established, he has mentioned it several times, he's not a Mandalorian. He is Boba Fett, the bounty hunter. And clearly, now that he's back in possession of his armor, he has a lot of things to make up for, a lot of business to take care of. And he seems to see the void that Jabba's death has left on Tatooine. He seems to know and recognize that Bib Fortuna is not taking advantage of the opportunity before him. He's letting everything whittle away all that Jabba built. And Boba Fett sees an opportunity to step up and become the new crime lord, a new part of the Hutt syndicates, as you will. And that's, again, the syndicate of the Hutts is a little bit of old. They talk about it in Clone Wars to a degree, but it could be something more fully explored in this Book of Boba Fett show. We might get a better glimpse of the underworld of the Star Wars universe, of the Star Wars galaxy, with this Book of Boba Fett show, which could be a lot of fun. It's something I think we were sort of, that was sort of hinted at, that might come to fruition in The Mandalorian, but it didn't pan out that way. I think once the whole Baby Yoda concept was agreed upon, that it kind of eliminated the ability to kind of explore some of the darker corners of the Star Wars galaxy. This Boba Fett show seems to be our window into that dark, seedy underbelly that we've glimpsed here and there. I reference episode 2 of Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan goes to that club in the lower levels of Coruscant and is offered death sticks, things like that. Things that Han Solo alludes to in Solo and in the original trilogy when he talks about his past. There's a lot. It's rich, fertile soil to explore, and it provides a new opportunity for Star Wars to show us another side of itself in a fun way. Now, I know there's been some criticisms, but perhaps you all have seen them online as well, that Boba Fett isn't a defined or rich enough character to hold his own show. I don't agree with that at all. I'm okay with the sort of more is less version of Boba Fett that we have. And especially if he's in league with a character like Fennec Shand, who I find infinitely fascinating, and I've always found Ming-Na Wen to be a completely charming and wonderful actress. And so if she's on that show, that's enough for me to watch Fennec and Boba Fett team up and try to run a criminal empire out of Tatooine, out of Jabba's old palace. I think that show could be a lot of fun. It might be a little bit darker, but it's Star Wars, so I still think it'll be watchable for audiences everywhere. But you'll get another look at you'll get a look at the like I said, that seedy underbelly of the Star Wars galaxy, and I think it could be a lot of fun. Now, granted, we know nothing. We know absolutely nothing about what this show could be, what it will be. I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, Bo-Katan does talk about bringing Mandalorians together. And we've talked about it on this, and we speculated on this podcast about it. Does Boba Fett get welcomed back to the fold at some point? Is he invited to become a true Mandalorian at some point? I don't know. It seems like if Bo-Katan's in charge, no. She does not seem to be all that interested in Boba Fett coming back to the fold, being part of the Mandalorian culture. But Din Djarin might feel differently, and if he's sitting on the throne of Mandalore, if he's the one bringing back the Mandalorian people, well, who knows? And another thing to consider with Din Djarin's story, too, is now that he knows that he's basically been raised by a Mandalorian cult, this Children of the Watch, another aspect of his story that we need to explore. Another reason why maybe his story isn't done just yet. But who knows? Who knows? We have to wait for some information here. We really, really do. But again, I think Din still has some stories left to tell. And I mean, to be honest, I don't think we're done with Grogu yet. I really don't. There's a lot of room for something to go wrong and something to happen. And Din has to go and find Grogu. Or again, I don't want to speculate too much because there's just so much ground to cover that we don't know yet, because the timeline is a little fuzzy in this area. We don't know, is Ben Solo alive and born yet? Has Luke started his Jedi Academy yet? Do we have to worry that Ben Solo is going to kill Grogu at Luke's Jedi Academy? There's so much to get into here, and we just don't know any of it yet. Does Grogu ultimately reject the path of the Jedi? I mean, is the next time we meet up with Din Djarin further down the timeline, and Grogu is older and able to communicate more, but also able to defend himself with his Force abilities? There's so much to get into here. There's so many possibilities. It's why Star Wars is so much fun, and why they've done such a great job on this show, because it presents us with so many wonderful opportunities to explore this fun Star Wars galaxy that we all love so much. And it's about the characters, and they've done such a wonderful job. Again, I love Din's arc, the way he has grown and progressed. His voluntarily removing his helmet in this episode in front of others was so big, so important. You saw it last week, but it was so that he could get information, so he could achieve the goal he needed to achieve. It was completely different in this scenario. He did it for Grogu, for the boy, for his boy, and that's why it was so profound and so impactful when he does it. And that's just wonderful. That's just wonderful storytelling, in my opinion. That's just so good, and it hits those emotional chords that make you connect with these characters. I'm gonna be thinking about this episode for a long time, and I'm gonna rewatch it a lot this weekend too, because it hits so many notes so wonderfully, and it's genuine emotion that comes out of this episode, out of the show, a lot of the show. That's been the one big blessing of season 2, is just like this emotional core that season 2 has had that maybe the first season didn't. And that's because Din was a different character. He was distant and cold, and he was all about his creed and this is the way, and the armorer, and supporting his people as best he could, but not realizing that Grogu would expose him to new truths about himself, about what he thinks the Mandalorian people are, about who the Mandalorian people can be. That's why I think Din's story is not done just yet. But what form, what fashion? We just don't have the information yet. And like I said, I keep hitting refresh, hoping that something new is going to pop up before I release this episode. Because usually what happens on this episode, on this podcast, or on the Tomcast podcast is we create the episode, we get it all put together, and then news drops after I've posted it online. So I was really trying to give it a chance to make it, but yeah, that's not the case today. It is not the case today. We don't have the information, and we probably won't until next week. So listen, with that being said, we should close up. I've been going on for so long because this is just a wonderful episode. I hope you all feel the same. You know where to find me on social media at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. I want to thank everyone so much for listening to the show. I've been really delighted that so many people have taken the time to check it out. Again, I hope you all are liking it. I'm open to feedback. Again, find me on social media. But we can talk. Like, tell me what you like, what you don't like about the show. I'll work with you. We'll figure it out. But in the meantime, this very likely could be the final Mandovision for the year, depending on what news breaks. And actually, before I wrap it up, I should mention also Disney Plus has announced that on Christmas Day there will be another Visions Mandalorian behind the scenes special that you can watch for the making of season 2. And I think we're all going to watch it, and we'll probably talk about that. So maybe I'll get a Bantha Tracks in right before the new year, or shortly after the new year. It depends on the news. But if this is the last episode of the year, I want to thank everyone once again for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Check us out, support us in any way that you are, whether it's just sharing it with your friends and all the other Mandos in your covert, or writing 5-star reviews and doing all that fun stuff. It means the world to me that you all have taken the time and seemingly embraced this show, and I guess by extension me, which is always nice, because I am a buckethead who needs some emotional support from time to time. So with that being said, I hope everyone has a wonderful, safe holiday season. It looks like hopefully the end is in sight with the pandemic. It looks like vaccines will be available soon, and then maybe we can all start like hanging out again in real life and talking about these shows at our favorite bars and restaurants and establishments and just I don't know. Wouldn't it be fun to all go to the movies again? I can't stop thinking about that. It'd be a real blast, I think. But yeah. Like I said, the end is in sight. Let's make it through the holidays. Stay strong. I know it's not fun, but we're doing the best we can. We're going to make it to the other side. Thank you all so much for listening. I've said it 18 times, but thank you. Again, I every time I see the numbers for this podcast, I can't believe how many people are checking it out and then coming back next week to do it again. Your support means the world to me. You are my fellow bucketheads. We are all in the same covert, and that's the most important part of the holiday season, is being with the other Mandos in your covert. That's the reason for the season, isn't it? All right, that's it. Let's get out of here. Happy holidays, and remember, this is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.